Goedenavond, dames en heren. Wij wensen jullie van harte welkom namens Standaard Boekhandel, maar ook de mensen van de Vooruit, de mensen van de Heus en uiteraard onze bekende Karl. Ik noem hem Karl, omdat dat veel gemakkelijker is om uit te spreken. We zijn dus heel blij dat jullie zo talrijk hier aanwezig zijn. Want uiteindelijk, wij hadden zoiets bij Standaard Boekhandel. Wij willen echt wel een keer iets doen voor onze klanten. Laten we een keer Karl komen signeren. Laten we Karl ook eens een lezing doen. En wij dachten, maximum 100 man zal hier aanwezig zijn. Na een week was eigenlijk de zaal volgeboekt. En kregen wij eigenlijk de boodschap dat we heel wat mensen ongelukkig zouden moeten maken. We hebben het geluk gehad dat zowel de Vooruit als wij konden zorgen dat er nog een grotere zaal kon zijn, zodanig dat wij iedereen toch konden aanvaarden hier. Nu, Standaard Boekhandel is ondertussen al 2 jaar in zware revolutie. We hebben 2 jaar geleden onze webwinkel georganiseerd. We hebben ook onze klantenkaart geïnstalleerd en we hebben toen altijd de belofte gemaakt dat we voor onze klanten meer zouden doen dan alleen maar punten doen sparen. Vanavond is hier opnieuw een groot voorbeeld en wij hopen dat we in de toekomst, dankzij heel wat sponsors, zulke dingen opnieuw kunnen doen. Wij weten trouwens dat Karl volgend jaar terug met een nieuw boek zal uitkomen. En dan dromen wij ervan, misschien kunnen we hem zo ver bewegen, dat hij volgend jaar hier terug staat in de Vooruit en dat we samen opnieuw zo'n evenement kunnen organiseren. Wat moet ik eigenlijk vertellen over Karl? Wij vanuit de Standaard Boekhandel komen eigenlijk dagdagelijks in contact met heel wat uitgevers. En we krijgen vaak een heleboel auteurs letterlijk over de vloer. Op een bepaald moment, 2 jaar geleden, komt een van de uitgevers bij ons en die zegt: kennen jullie Karl? En dan moest ik het uitspreken, Knausgård of Knausgård. En die zeiden toen van dat is echt de coming man. Hij is nog niet zo bekend, maar als we een beetje goede pers krijgen en als we er samen iets kunnen aan doen, zodat hij toch bekend wordt, dan gaat heel België daarvan van wakker liggen en zeggen: wij moeten die man zien en we moeten zeker zijn boeken kopen. Ik dacht, ja, dat wordt hier elke dag tegen mij gezegd en tegen mijn team. Laten we toch maar eens een van zijn boeken gaan lezen. En ik moet eerlijk zeggen, ik was er niet goed van. Schitterend boek. Ze noemen hem eigenlijk de nieuwe Proust. Als je de pers leest, hij heeft overal positieve reacties gekregen. En dan zeg ik van, daar moeten we veel meer kunnen mee doen. Ik heb zo net het genoegen gehad om met hem aan tafel te zitten. Het is gewoon een hele eenvoudige, toffe man. En die vanavond zeker jullie een hele mooie avond zal voor zorgen dat dat goed is, dat dat fantastisch is. Dus ik ga stoppen met mijn verhaal te brengen over Standaard Boekhandel. Ik wens jullie allemaal een fantastische avond. Geniet ervan en ik geef nu het woord aan de ambassadeur die ook vanavond een grote sponsor is, die ervoor zorgt na heel de happening dat er voor iedereen ook een mooie receptie is. Dus ik vind dat ook wel eens leuk dat we kunnen napraten. En zijn naam uitspreken is wat moeilijker, maar toch proberen. Ik geef nu het woord aan Niels Engelsen. Dat is de ambassadeur. Dank je wel.
Dear all, I think I will say this in English because my Dutch is somewhat limited. Last year, Karl Ove Knausgård was in Belgium to present the translation of his first book, My Struggle series, Vader. Karl Ove started his reading by reading the first pages of that book, a truly fascinating description of death. Suddenly, a man in the audience falls down on the floor, unconscious. Some panic in the room, some had to go with the ambulance. The ambulance arrives, and the man was safe. But that put Karl Ove's reading in a more dramatic setting than anticipated. We were all a bit frightened, and when he talked about death, it was a bit special. But it worked out well. Let's hope that tonight will be less dramatic. Tonight, in one of the most important art centers in Belgium, Vooruit, Karl Ove Knausgård is presenting the Dutch version of his second book, Liefde, or his second book in this series. Knausgård is Norwegian literature's wonder boy, perhaps not a label how he would like himself, and he has become something unusual, a top-selling writer of 6 autobiographical novels. In a country with only 5 million people, the My Struggle series has sold over 450,000 books. The final volume was published last year in Norway, and Knausgård has become a household name. I must admit that I'm quite impressed. Publishing rights of the first volume was sold to 15 different countries, and it has been published into languages ranging from Azeri to Hebrew, from Portuguese to German. The books have been widely discussed and controversial, both in style and content. Let me just quote the author himself on the controversial title and project. My struggle makes you think of megalomania and great battles. This is the opposite. It's about the trivial and unheroic. There is some irony there. Look at it in that way, the title is almost perfect. Controversial, yet still extremely popular in Norway. But it also has received excellent critics abroad. The Danish newspaper Politiken, the critic there made a parallel to Marcel Proust, À la recherche du temps perdu. In a way, reminiscence and memories are revoked. I called it an autobiography, but the question is whether it's the right term. Maybe we should call it a fictional autobiography, as someone has called. As such, it might be seen as a part of a broader trend in contemporary literature. And perhaps even more. The French magazine Le Figaro writes that Knausgård has imposed the genre, or the style, reinventing it in an uncompromising version, very personal and perfectly original. In Belgium, he hit the cover of Knack, apparently something that hardly ever happens to writers. Knack covers, I suppose, as far as I know, meant for famous rock stars and movie stars. And the magazine is quite clear, this is a man you have to read. Having lived myself for 3 years in Stockholm, I particularly enjoyed the descriptions in this number 2 of his life in Sweden. That's the focus of this Liefde, whether it's on the role of a modern father or the descriptions of life in Stockholm, a beautiful city. But in spite of having lived in Sweden for many years, he stresses now more and more his Norwegian identity. With these words, I would like to thank Karl Ove Knausgård for coming to Ghent and to Belgium to present his book again, but of course also for his writing. I would like to thank the Foruyt for hosting this event tonight, and the Standard Bokhandel in close cooperation with the publishing house, the Hughes, to make this 10 days tour in Belgium and the Netherlands such a success. And I not least would like to thank you all coming here. But I think she said that my Dutch is limited, but I think she talked about that. We have a pleasure, of course, to invite you to a reception, to a small gathering after the lecture, perhaps a drink, snack, and I hope that all of you can stay here. So let me just also give the word to our Anna Luyten, who's now going to head this now, and I welcome you all here. Thank you.
Thank you. Dames en heren, het is een hele eer om hier met u te zitten en vooral met Karl Knausgård. Het is een hele eer, maar ook een heel groot genoegen. Ik ben zelf een heel grote fan van zijn boeken. Het is begonnen met Vader, het eerste boek dat hij schreef. Meedogenloos voor zichzelf, broos voor ons allemaal, sterk, ontroerend, heel detailistisch en daarom zo waar. Dat was Vader, over de dood van een vader, over het leven met een alcoholische vader en over hoe het een mens vergaat als hij ouder wordt. Toen kwam het tweede boek, Liefde, en ook dat heb ik verslonden, aan 1 stuk doorgelezen en wakker geworden na al die bladzijden. Liefde gaat over een huwelijk, het gaat over een echtscheiding, het gaat over een passionele verliefdheid, het gaat over een tweede huwelijk. Het gaat ook over kinderen krijgen, over met pampers rondlopen door de straten. Het gaat over babygymnastiek. Het gaat over automutilatie uit passie. Het gaat ook heel veel over wat literatuur kan doen met een mens en wat het doet met ons als lezer. Hij is een zeer bijzonder iemand. Een ego-document schrijven op 3500 bladzijden, de hele weg door, zo diep als maar kan. Hij heeft Mijn Kamp, zo heet de hele reeks, die bestaat uit 6 boeken. Wij moeten als Nederlandstalige lezers nog wachten op de andere 4. Geschreven tussen 2009 en 2011. Hij heeft een reeks geschreven waar iedereen van heel Europa, zelfs Amerika, iedereen spreekt erover. Op alle mogelijke terreinen. Hij wordt een rockster genoemd. Hij wordt zelfs de meest sexy man of the North genoemd. Maar hier is hij voor ons allemaal, Karl Ove Knausgård. Karl Ove, welcome. So
Thank
the
you.
most sexiest man of the North.
Says a lot about Norway, very little about me.
Okay. But you gave away your soul to us.
I never thought that when I was writing the book, because I did that all by myself. And for me it was a very personal, almost private project. And I think if you start thinking of the readers, then you are dead as a writer. You have to do it for yourself, because you have to be free in your thoughts and free in your movements, right? But then the book came out, and then I realized. I went to an occasion like this in Stavanger. It was the first after the book was published. And people started to act differently towards me. And it was very scary, because you're used to people behave in a certain way, and all of a sudden there was a tension, and people looking, and they kind of get drunk to talk to me.
Get drunk to talk to, so they were afraid of you.
To dare to do it. And they keep asking questions that was kind of intimate, like they know me. And then on my back home, I realized what this was, that everybody knows something about me. And not only about me, but my family as well, my children. And I gave them away, in a way. And it was a terrible moment. But then I thought...
Do you have the feeling that you gave yourself away?
Yes, I have that. But it was necessary to do it.
Why?
Because I wanted to... I'm not interested in giving away stories from my life, telling stories or anecdotes. This is for me an existential search, And like, I was turning 40, and I have a kind of a crisis in my life.
A midlife crisis? Or
yeah, I think it's as easy as that. My friends, they bought kayaks or bicycles or get a divorce or something like that.
You also had one, but...
Yeah, but that was a bit earlier. It's nothing a midlife crisis. And I have kids, 3 kids and a wife, and I was a writer, which was all I ever have dreamt of. But I wasn't happy. I felt like a lack of meaning in my life, and that's one of the 7 death sins, to not appreciate life. And it's serious. Everything is grey. It's a terrible state of mind.
It's a little bit like in the song of the Once in a Lifetime lyrics. You know them, of Talking Heads?
Yeah. I got a beautiful house, got a
and a beautiful wife.
How did I get there? You know, that was my starting point. How did I get there? So I just wanted to basically explore myself, try to explore all my relations, writing about my father, my mother, my brother, my friends, everything that has happened to me, to try to find out who I am.
You started with your father. Why this first part about your father? Was this the most important thing to start with? Was this the biggest demon?
Yeah. I think everybody got one story from their lives that is more important. My father's story, I have to tell you a little bit about him. Because when I grew up, he was kind of a respected member of society, a normal man. He was a teacher, well-liked, I believe, and a local politician. But at home, he was very authoritarian, very unpredictable, very scary. I was afraid of him. So my childhood was based on knowing where he was, in what kind of mood he was. it was a kind of a terror to grow up with him. At the same time, he could be good at moments, you know, which is even more scary because then you know he is good somewhere in him.
He was unpredictable.
He was. And that's the worst for a kid. And then, when he was 40, he divorced, started a new life, started to drink. I think he did that because he wanted more freedom. He got kids when he was 20, so he was stuck in a life I think he didn't really want. And he started to drink, and he became an alcoholic rather quickly. I have read his notebooks where he states down everything he's drinking every day. And then he tries to stop, but he can't. So reading that after his death was like looking into an abyss. And then, when I was 30 or 29, he died. And then he had lost his job, lost his friends, moved back to his mother's house, which was a wealthy, respectable, fine house, and been living there 1 year with her and been drinking. And she was also drinking. So me and my brother drove down there, and the house was, it looked like, you know, a place where junkies have lived. It was bottles everywhere, it was blood, it was excrement, it was terrible. But I had this idea when I was in my 20s that I wanted him dead. I wanted him out of my life. I wanted him dead. And then I drove down there and I realized that, no, I was so filled with sorrow. And I cried. So what we did, we cried and we washed down the house. Cried, washed for 1 week. To try to make it respectable in a way, I think. And that story, his fall, I think this was kind of a slow suicide. I think at the moment he just wanted to die. So why did he fall? And I was in the 40s myself, and I was very frustrated, and I wanted to get away, you know, so I could identify with him for the first time in my life. So then his story is my story, and I wanted to tell it through him.
Did you recognize something of your father in yourself?
Yeah, I did.
Also in your drinking behavior?
It's very strange because you think you know your life, you know who you are and all those things. But really there is a lot of patterns in your life that you don't realize yourself. And in my father's and my life, we lived together for half a year, just me and him. And this was the time he was leaving. So I could come home and I could find him sitting alone in a chair crying, you know, or drinking. But I separate myself from him. So he was in love and he was drinking. I was 16, I was in love, and I have started to drink. And it was fantastic to drink for me. It was so fantastic to drink. And there we were, two men, one 16, one 40, both drinking, both in love. Didn't talk about it. It was two different worlds, you know. And I discovered this in the writing. Oh, it was the same time drinking, you know.
You recognized something also in your fatherhood, because you became a father too. Were you afraid to become the same father as your father was?
Yes. And I had a kind of a naive concept. I thought you became a father the moment the baby is born, you're a father. And that's it, you know, it's just something you are. I didn't realize how complicated it is. Having a kid they confront you in such a ways that you show things you don't want to show, you know. It's like,
and they see everything.
What did you say?
Children see everything.
Yeah, and I want to be a good man, and I thought I was a good man, and all of a sudden I was so frustrated. I could, you know, lose completely temper. I could scream at my little daughter, and she was little, or, you know, shake her or something terrible like that. That's my father, you know, losing control over yourself. And I have to work with that, you know, and I do still, and it's getting better, but that made it possible for me to understand my father a little bit more, you know.
Is this book or this Mein Kampf also a kind of confession?
Yes, it started really. It was much more confessional in the beginning. You know, I tried to tell this story about my father as fiction. So I struggled with it for 4 years, and I didn't believe in it.
To write it as a fiction?
Yeah, to write it as a normal novel with fictitious name, but it didn't work. And then I started something else. I wrote about myself, and that was really confessional. I wrote the most shameful moments in my life, where I've been, and I sent it to my editor, and he called it a kind of a manic self-confession. You can't possibly publish this; it's impossible. But then I, combined these two things: the self confession, the self-search, I think I have to say, with the story with my father. And then something happened, and it created a lot of energy, and it created a kind of a language for the everyday life, which was very important for me.
Why was this so important? Was it also a search for meaning of life?
Yes. I have been, and I'm very ambitious, I want to create something big, And when I see art, I could be moved to tears if it's good, I mean, you have a lot of things like that in Belgium, which is fantastic.
You saw today the Lam Gods in Ghent here. You were in the cathedral today?
Yeah, just walked by, yeah.
And you saw the paintings in the churches, or?
No, I didn't have time. I was too busy signing books.
You have to go tomorrow morning. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will. But this is an important thing for me, and for me, I think there is literature, art is kind of a place where meaning are compressed, where it's expressed in a very distinct way. But I realized I had 3 kids, a lot of changing diapers, running after them, quarreling with my wife. We did quarrel a lot at that time. And I realized that my life was complete without that, has nothing to do with high art whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So I instead understand I have to write about this existence, because this is what life is. And if you write a novel, a realistic novel, you still have plots, dramas, you structure it, and you're not so interested in washing up or washing clothes or all those things we do every day and we forget it. I mean, you don't remember what you did last week, I guess. and I wanted a language for that, and I found a language for that. But the difficulty is, of course, this is very boring. So how can you write a lot about these details without everything falling apart, That was something I'm just trying to do in this book. And when my father died, I was in this normal, trivial life, I got a phone, your father is dead, my father is dead. Everything changes, It's like you're entering another zone. Everything changes. Everything is kind of filled with meaning or feelings and I wanted to describe that feeling of everything changes, So that's why it's everyday life first and then death. And that makes it possible to be even more detailed, because it's such a strength in death. Everything is meaningful around it in a way. And it's the same thing with love, just the opposite. You live a normal life, you fall in love, everything changes. Not just you, but all your surroundings. Everything is good and fine and beautiful, and you're filled with freedom. And I try to describe that in the second book, Meeting My Wife. And I've never been so madly in love with no one before when I met her.
Yes, because you were really madly in love.
Yeah, I was. I think I was mad, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, there is even a scene in the book where you describe your auto-mutilation. So you take the glass in the bathroom and then you're cutting yourself.
Yeah.
That's really mad.
Yes, it is.
I can't see the scarves anymore. Was it deep?
No, luckily it was too superficial that you can see it. But I have forgotten that story. It's in the book, right? Because I've been talking about the book, and then I also talking about my life, and you know, I mixed those two things. But I met Linda. I was married in Norway, and I was at I have published my first book. So it was a conference for first book writers, and it was in Sweden. And I walked up, and I saw Linda, and she was, well, that was love at first sight. I was so attracted to her. But she is bipolar, so she is, you know, manic depressive. So she was at that moment manic on her way up. So she's kind of boundless. I mean, and she has enormously, what's the word, aura or attraction, you know. And I was just circling around her for the whole week. I remember, yeah, and then I had to come in contact with her, and my only way to contact people is to get drunk, because then I can talk to them, you know. And I did. So I get drunk and I go over and talk to her, and I said, I'm willing to give everything in my life away for you. And she said, okay, I like you, I think you're a good boy. She called me a boy.
A boy.
Yeah. But your friend, he's very interesting. And this have happened to me before. When I was in my 20s, I was so in love with a girl, and my brother took her, and they were together, you know. And so I was so afraid of this happening. And this friend, he was like a brother for me, and it was happening again. And what I did, I went into the room, I crushed a glass, and I started to cut myself. I was so, you know, this was 1 year after my father died. So I was so filled with feeling and confusions and all those things. I didn't know what to do with them. And I was drunk. So I didn't, you know, knock someone else. I did it on myself. And that was our first meeting. And I came out the next day to the other pupils there, and they were screaming when they saw me. And Linda was crying. And I did at least make an impression on her, you know. But it worked. Yeah, she never forgets me, I know. Then her trip upwards continued. So she was manic, and she was hospitalized, and then she was depressed, and then she was in hospital for 2 years, I think. And then me and my wife divorced. I never told my wife about this. Then we divorced, and I go to Sweden, and I called Linda, and we met, and she was totally different. Another person, you know. She wasn't manic, she was like she normally is. And I fell in love again. And I didn't dare talk to her. How can I approach her? I asked her to movie.
What movie was it?
Star Wars. And because we are both very childish, you know. And I didn't talk to her. We just walked, you know, in there, saw the movie, walked back. I couldn't speak. I was speechless. And I knew I had to do something. So I got drunk.
Again?
Yeah. We were at, she called me and invited me to a party, and I got drunk. And I decided I have to tell her my feelings for her. And then I asked her out, and it was raining, we were on the street. You know, I couldn't talk to this woman. And then, but no, I could, because I was drunk. So I told her, I mean, you know, I told her how I told her about her eyes, the way she moved her lips, everything that she evoked in me. And then she lifted her head and kissed me. And it felt like it was something, a shadow coming up in me, you know, like that. And everything went black. And the next thing I know, someone is screaming and dragging me away and calling it an ambulance and shaking me, have you used drug? Have you used drug? So I fainted. And then she was in charge of the situation. She said, you come with me in a taxi back home. I give you some food. And I ate something. And then I was in her apartment, you know. And then from then on we were together. And and this is like a silly story, but we were silly. And my first thought was, I want to have kids with her. I never have that thought before. So we were discussing that, how many kids? I mean, the first night we were together. And we said 3, because it's...
And now you have 3.
Now we have 3. And this was kind of a total happy state for 2 months. And then things kept, going down.
I have to ask you something first. You described this in your book, but you did something before you before you told her how beautiful her eyes were and everything like that. You wrote her a letter. Yeah. So you wrote the things down before.
Yeah, that's right. And it was kind of those things I said.
Is it because you say it often you said it often in interviews, and I can see it in your eyes. I am shy, but you are shy too. So do you have to write something down sometimes when it is very, very important? And to prepare yourself to give your heart away or to tell someone something very important?
No, this was kind of coincidental, I think. But Linda, we are still married. She says to me that you don't understand anything before you have written it down. Because this book, the 6 books, and it ends, the last book ends with the consequences of those 5 books. And one of the consequences is that Linda got ill. For the first time since the time I mentioned, she got ill and was hospitalized, which is a total disaster for all of us, because we have 3 kids and so on and so on. And I knew I have to tell that story about us, because that was a real consequence of the book. And then I realized, when I was writing it, I realized what this was. Because when she was sick, I was just angry and mad and, come on, why are you doing this to me, Kind of very, very selfish. But then I wrote it and I could see it. I could see her and then everything was different. So she's right, I have to write it before I can see it.
Is your writing desk then a kind of protection shield, or is your pen a sword to fight with?
I have always used literature as escapism, a way of turning away from the world,
Turning away from the world.
Yeah, when I was a kid, that was what I was doing. I was hiding in books. Because the strange thing with books is that you can just lie down in the place you are and disappear, go somewhere else. So I read a lot of books when I was a kid. And when I grew up, I continued. But then, this other place that literature art changes a bit, because it's not about getting away. It's about getting outside of who you are. And then you can see. Then you can see the society, the culture, identity, everything. So that's literature for me, is the place outside of. And you prefer everything.
The place of an outsider?
Yes, I do, and it's a protection, and the fight or struggle in the second book is about that, because it's a relationship. It's about me and my wife, and I want distance. I want to keep, people away from me, and she wants the opposite. She wants life, and she wants closeness, and she wants safety. So that was, I'm describing. This is love, This is real problems. You are 2 different persons wanting 2 different things, and you have to do it together. So I didn't understand that. I thought she was trying to control me, or that she didn't want me any good. But she was just scared, And writing about that made me realize that. But if you are in the midst of a situation, you don't see it. And if you are, like many people are in our age, having children, and it's so much, you can't see it. You have no perspective, especially with small kids. You just have to do it, and you can't, really reflect upon it, or that you can do later.
Because in your book you were also describing how you are sometimes really craving for some distance with other people. You behave very, in fact, too kind with other people, when you have to go to a birthday party or when you are in your family, you're very, very kind. But then there is a moment that you say, now I close the door, I smoke my cigarette, and the world is outside again. Or I'm the outsider again. That's maybe better.
Because that's not painful, you know. That's the whole point with distance. It's much more easy not dealing with people. And I think if I should psychoanalyze myself, this has to do with basic things from childhood. And this explanation is very simple, and I don't believe in that simple, but it has a point, you know. If someone deny you when you're a kid, someone, you know, you get a feeling you're not good enough, I don't want you, you know. You keep being afraid of being denied when you get older. And I haven't been brave enough to have friends, because I think friends they think I'm an idiot. They will think I'm an idiot, you know. So it's better for me, safer for me to say I don't need friends. I'm better off alone. And then this became a pattern, and then that's all of a sudden, that's your life. And that's life for me. And I know I like being alone. I mean, I don't do it for an excuse for something. I like it. And writing is very good for me, because then I'm by myself.
But that's also a question to come closer, or you ask the public, come closer to me, or you are coming closer yourself, because now we know you all. I mean, you're a very intimate friend for me, but I don't know you personally.
No. That's the strange thing with literature. Because if you had met me, I haven't read anything, and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to tell you the story of my life. I'm starting with my father, my wife, so on, so on. It would take maybe 4 hours, and you will have been gone a long time before that.
Course,
you wouldn't have the patience, you know. Who's this idiot to just talk and talk and talk and talk, you know. But in writing, it's different, because you know, you create something yourself in the reading, and you use your own feelings in the reading and your own experience in the reading. So it's totally different. And that way to communicate, I always found it fantastic, because literature is two persons, never more than two persons. You see never a stadium of people reading together, you know? It's not about that. Mm-hmm. One writer, one reader. And the strange thing is, for me, writing and reading is the same. When I read, I disappear from myself. I become someone else, you know? And when I write, it's the same experience. I become selfless in the good, you know, when it's the best writing. I don't think about myself, my problems, nothing. I just disappear into something. And the thing there is, you escape, or you go under the fence, which is the social circumstances. There is so many things you have to do when you are face to face with a person, you know. But when you write, there are no other people there, so you can go under that and I can't explain it really good in English.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I'm very interested in the dynamic between the self and the social reality, because the social reality or the social scene is so strong, you know. There is so many expectations you have to fulfill. There's so many things you have to say and have to mean and have to do, you know. And we have to do that because we have to function together as a society, you know. So it's a very strong we in the world. And writing is about the opposite. It's about the self, the one, you know. And literature combine those two things, I think. It's always the one, but it's many places, so it's at the same time the self.
About the we and the I, you once wrote a very beautiful piece for the radio. It was after the Breivik-affaire in 2011, in August. And then you give an explanation that I think it's very beautiful, why you called your book or the whole series Mein Kampf. And then you say, I have reading Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf all winter and spring. I just read it for you. I have also read a lot of books about him and the times in which he lived. Vienna, 1910, Flanders, 1916, Munich, 1923. I did that because I have written a novel about it. I didn't want to write a novel about evil or war or Nazism. I wanted to write a novel about one book, Mein Kampf and the man who wrote it. If I had to describe Mein Kampf in one sentence, it would be that it is a book without a you. There is an I, there is a we, and there is a they. But there's no you. Without a you, the I can say and think what it likes. The I stands uncorrected. It has no obligations regarding anything other than itself and its own ideas. The absence of a you is also typical of Hitler's life. How many I's are there in your Mein Kampf?
How many?
Yeah, I mean, you are speaking for yourself. It's you can say it's one man who is explaining, or who is confessioning, or who is telling his life as an I.
Yeah.
Me. There is a lot of. You can see it as a long monologue also.
Yeah.
What's the difference with Mein Kampf of Hitler?
Feels like it's a very dangerous place to be, writing about Hitler's book and saying it's not a you in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reactions I have got from this book I've written is all about that. And I didn't expect that at all. I didn't think I wrote that kind of book. But people came to me with really intense or really, really important, really, really serious things and want to talk about it because of the book. And I don't know them, you know. But they have had a kind of conversation with the book or experience with the book that is directly relevant to their own lives. And that is, I think, an I-you situation, you know, in the book.
So that's a we.
We.
Together.
Yeah. It's, you know, I've written all this about Mein Kampf and Hitler's book. And I read the manifesto to Breivik. And I felt it was obvious that the you there. The you is the other, you know. And the other is a correction, you know. You can't really kill the other if it's a you. It's impossible. And Breivik could, because he has eliminated that. I mean, he has eliminated the eyes who looks upon you, you know. There is a very good essay by the French writer Jean Genet. He writes about Rembrandt. And he describes the situation. He's on a train coach somewhere in France. And there is an ugly man on the other side, the bench on the other side. He got bad teeth and a little moustache, and he's fat and he's stinking and he's spitting. And then Genet is looking at him, and he got a kind of a revelation, saying to himself, this man is worth exactly the same as I am worth. And you are trained to think that in school, you know, Christianity, that's a common thought. But he really realized what it means. And it's almost an impossible thought. But he's thinking it. And then their eyes are meeting. And his next thought is, maybe we are not alike, but the same. Somewhere in us is kind of identical. Exactly the same. And this is the same, it's a revelation. That's the other, it's the same. But Genet despised that. It's a terrible, terrible thought. Because I don't know really why, but this is an essay about Rembrandt. And for Rembrandt, it's everything is equal in his portraits, you know, or in his paintings. And thinking about these things, knowing that Breivik did what he did, the strange thing is that he is he's obviously one of us. I know him, he's kind, I know his background, I know everything of him. And, you know, it's impossible to do what he did. In the Second World War, I think it was only 15% of the American soldiers who really killed. It's very difficult to get soldiers to kill, just because of, you can't really. And then they have a training program, very professional now. Now the rate for killing in American army is 95%. And they do that kind of systematically, erase the other, dehumanize the other, so it's no longer a human being, you know? The moment it is a human being, you can't really kill him. Breivik did, and he did it by himself. The American army kills, and it's a collective act. They train together, they want to protect each other, you know, it's we against them, and them are just nobody, you know. It's like the Jews in the Second World War. They could kill it because they were no one, they were not human, you know. But Breivik did, and how come he could do it all by himself? You need a terrible lot of distance to kill, you know. How could this distance be in our time? And that's very dangerous. I think that's where the danger is, the distance, you know. It's possible to do this. I don't care about his arguments or nothing, but the distance, I feel that's very scary. And when he describes his killings, he describes it like a film. He said he was shooting someone at the wall and they didn't run away. And he said, well, how come? Because I've seen on film, they always are running, but they was just standing still like, you know, scared animals, and he killed them. And film, that's distance. And film is also no consequences. So he have no corrections, he just turn away from society. And then, you know, like, it's not real for him, no consequences there. And I think we allow computer games killing, you know. We allow it. We allow films killing, you know, because it's a game. It's not real. But the danger is the day you take that down to the real world, you know. That's dangerous. And that was what the Nazis did, and that was what Breivik did all by himself. And this was the end, strange end of the book, but that was the end, a reflection upon this turning away from society, very dangerous, distance, very dangerous. And yeah.
And literature is something completely different then. It's another kind of distance. It's more approaching, it's more
Breivik,
coming nearby. No, in your case, when you're writing this kind of books, you are talking a lot about distance and dangerous distances and more human distances. Sometimes you need them to make art or to write literature. So literature can help people to come closer. That's what you mean then?
Yes, I think obvious fact is Breivik wrote his manifesto, Turning Away from the World. I wrote this book, Turning Away from the World, but there is a big difference. And that's the idea of the perfect, the idea of, you know, the hero or the ideologies, what's the perfectness is at center. I mean, I describe the exact opposite. I describe, you know, the imperfect man, the flushing, you know, all the mistakes, all the little things in life. I don't believe in the big things. I don't believe in it, and I think it's dangerous. So for me, literature is the exact opposite of ideologies. So, and it's very important. And it's always been a subject in literature. The first novel, Don Quixote, what is it about? It's about one man, and it's a world of, you know, heroes and love and knights and all that. And then it's a real world, which is a comedy. Everything is incomplete. Everybody's falling, hurting, drinking, you know. And that difference is the book. And another brilliant book is Madame Bovary. All the dreams about a fantastic and romantic life and her own life, which is kind of the exact opposite, full of banalities. And this is the novel's main theme, I think. The little life, the little man. I think that's...
Just ordinary life.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's impossible to write a novel with a real hero. I mean, then it's a cartoon. We don't believe in it. And I don't believe in heroes, really.
Do you want to read a part of your second novel, Liefde? I think the book is here. Yeah,
okay, brilliant.
It's about diapers. Dus Pampers brengt ons echt toch tot de werkelijkheid.
Oh, this is... okay. I'm sorry, I haven't marked it in the book. So this could take a little while. But this is a comedy, what I'm going to read. But sometime when I read this part, people are laughing. And other times, no one is laughing. And you can never tell. But this is... I found it. Okay. Den svake forakten jeg betraktet menn som trillet på barnevogner med, var mildt sagt tveegget, siden jeg som selv oftest hadde en foran meg når jeg så dem. At jeg var alene om disse følelsene, tvilte jeg på. Jeg mente iblant å gjenkjenne det urolige blikk hos enkelte menn på lekeplassene, og rastløsheten i de kroppene som gjerne kunne ta et par armhevinger i lekeapparatet mens barn lekte rundt dem. Men å tilbringe noen timer hver dag på en lekeplass med sitt barn var så sin sak. Det fantes ting som var langt verre. Linda hadde så vidt begynt å gå med Vanja på en slags babyrytmikk på stadsbiblioteket. Og da jeg tok over ansvaret, ville hun at Vanja skulle fortsette. Det ante meg at noe forferdelig ventet der. Så jeg sa nei, det skal vi absolutt ikke gjøre. Nå er det meg Vanja er med, og da blir det ingen babyrytmikk. Men Linda fortsetter å nevne det nå og dag. Og etter noen måneder hadde motstanden min mot den rollen som myk innebar blitt brutt såpass radikalt ned, samtidig som Vanja hadde blitt såpass stor at dagen hennes burde inneholde en viss variasjon, at jeg en dag sa, ja, i dag tenkte vi gå på babyrytmikk på stadsbiblioteket. Husk å gå tidlig, sa Linda. Det blir fort fullt. Og slik hadde det seg at jeg en tidlig ettermiddag trillet Vanja oppover Sveavegen mot Odenplan, hvor jeg krysset veien og gikk inn gjennom døren i stadsbiblioteket, som jeg av en eller annen grunn ikke hadde vært inne i tidligere. Selv om det var en av byens aller vakreste bygninger, tegnet av Asplund en gang på 1920-tallet, den perioden jeg likte best av alle i det forrige 100-året. Vanja var mett, uthvilt og hadde på seg rene klær, nøye utvalgt for anledningen. Jeg kjøv vognen inn i den store, helt runde hovedsalen, spurte en kvinne bak en disk om barneavdelingen, fulgte anvisningen hennes inn i en sidefløy full av hyller med barnebøker, hvor det på en dør aller innerst hang en plakat som opplyste om at her begynte babyrytmikk klokken 14. 3 barnevogner stod der allerede. I noen stoler like bortenfor satt deres eiere, 3 kvinner i tunge jakker og med slitne ansikter, alle om lag 35, men det som sannsynligvis var barna deres krabbet snørrete rundt på gulvet mellom dem. Jeg parkerte vognen inn til deres, løftet opp Vanja, satte meg ned på en liten avsats med henne i fanget, tok av henne jakken og skoene og senket henne forsiktig ned på gulvet. Tenkte at også hun kunne krype rundt litt. Men det ville hun ikke. Her kunne hun ikke huske å ha vært før. Da var det inntil meg hun ville holde seg, og strakte armen i været. Jeg løftet henne opp i fanget igjen. Der satt hun og betraktet de andre barna interessert. Gående nedover gulvet kom så en ung, vakker kvinne med en gitar i hånden. Hun kunne være rundt 25, hadde langt, lyst hår, en kåpe som rakk henne omtrent til knærne, lange, svarte støvletter, og hun stoppet foran meg. «Hei», sa hun. «Deg har jeg ikke sett her før. Skal du på babyrytmikk?» «Ja», sa jeg og så på henne. Hun var virkelig vakker. «Har du meldt deg på det?» «Nei», sa jeg. «Må man det?» «Ja, det må man, og i dag er det dessverre fullt.» Ja, det var gode nyheter. «Det var synd», sa jeg og reiste meg. «Siden du ikke visste det», sa hun, «så skal jeg vel få klemt deg inn den ene gangen, så melder du på til neste gang etterpå.» «Takk skal du ha», sa jeg. Hun smilte et vakkert smil. Så åpnet hun døren og gikk inn. Jeg bøyde meg litt fram og så at hun la gitarkassen ned på gulvet og tok av seg kåpen og skjerfet, hengte det over en stol innerst i rommet. Utstrålingen hennes var frisk, lett, våraktig. Jeg ante hvilken vei det bar, og burde bare reist meg godt derfra. Men det var ikke for min skyld jeg var der, det var for Vanjas og Lindas. Så jeg ble sittende. Vanja var 8 måneder og ble fullstendig trollbundet av alt som lignet forestillinger, og det skulle hun få være med på. Flere kvinner med barnevogner kom sigende inn, og snart var rommet fylt av småprat, hosting, latter, gråting, rasling med klær og fikling med vesker. Det virket som om de fleste kom 2 og 2 eller 3 og 3. Lenge så jeg ut til å være den eneste som var der alene. Men noen minutter på 2 ankom ytterligere 2 menn. Av kroppsspråket deres forstod jeg at de ikke kjente hverandre. Den ene av dem, en liten fyr med stort hode og briller, nikket til meg. Jeg kunne ha sparket til ham. Hva var det han trodde? At vi tilhørte samme forening? Så var det av med overallen og hetten og skoene, opp med tåteflasken og en rangle, og ned på gulvet med ungen. Mødrene hadde for lengst begynt å gå inn i rommet hvor babyrytmikken skulle foregå. Jeg ventet i det lengste, men da klokken var 1 minutt på, reiste jeg meg og gikk inn med Vanja på armen. Det var lagt ut puter på gulvet. Dem skulle vi sitte på, mens den unge kvinnen som skulle lede det hele satt på en stol foran oss. Med gitaren i fanget så hun smilende utover. Hun hadde på seg en beige, kashmiraktig genser. Brystene hennes var velformede, midjen smal, bena, det ene lå opp og det andre vippet, var lange og fortsatt ikledd svarte støvletter. Jeg satte meg på puten min, plasserte Vanja i fanget. Hun stirret med store øyne på kvinnen med gitaren, som nå ønsket oss velkommen. «Vi har noen nye her i dag», sa hun. «Kanskje dere vil presentere dere?» «Monika», sa en. «Kristina», sa en annen. «Lull», sa en tredje. «Lull? Hva faen var det for et navn?» Det ble stille. Den vakre kvinnen så på meg og smilte oppmuntrende. «Karl Ove», sa jeg mørkt. «Da begynner vi med velkomstsangen vår», sa hun og slo an første akkorden som klang ut, men som forklarte at foreldrene skulle si navnet til sitt barn, og hun nikket til dem, og så skulle alle synge dette barnets navn. Hun slo akkorden igjen, og alle begynte å synge. Sangen handlet om at han skulle si hei til kompisen sin, mens man vinket med hånden, hvor foreldrene til de av barna som var for små til å forstå, grep den med håndledd og viftet med hånden deres, noe jeg også gjorde, mens jeg da de andre verset tok til, ikke lenger hadde noen unnskyldning for å sitte der taus og måtte begynne å synge. Den dype stemmen min lød som en sykdom i kor av lyse kvinnestemmer. 12 ganger sang vi hei til kompisen vår før alle barna var nevnt og vi kunne gå videre. Neste sang handlet om kroppsdelene som barna da selvfølgelig skulle berøre når det ble nevnt. Panne, øyne, øre, nese, munn, mage, kne, fot. Panne, øyne, øre, nese, munn, mage, kne, fot. Så fikk vi utdelt forskjellige ranglagte instrumenter som vi skulle sitte og rangle med mens vi sang en ny sang. Jeg var ikke pinlig berørt. Det var ikke flaut å sitte der. Det var ydmykende og nedverdigende. Alt var mykt og vennlig og godt. Alle bevegelser var små, og vi satt sammenkrøpet på en pute og lallet sammen med mødre og barn i en sang som til alt overmål ble ledet av en kvinne jeg gjerne skulle ha ligget med. Men gjennom å sitte der var jeg fullstendig ufarliggjort, uten verdighet, impotent. Det var ingen forskjell på meg og henne, annet enn at hun var vakrere, og den utjevningen hvor jeg hadde gitt slipp på alt det som var meg, til og med min størrelse, og det frivillige, fylte meg med raseri. Så skal babysen få danse litt, sa hun og la gitaren ned på gulvet, reiste seg og gikk bort til en CD-spiller som stod på en stol ved siden av. Alle stiller seg en ring, og så går vi først den ene veien, stamper med føttene slik, sa hun og stampet med den vakre foten sin, snurrer rundt en gang og går tilbake den andre veien. Jeg reiste meg, løftet Vanja etter, stilte meg i den sirkelen som ble dannet. Jeg så etter de 2 andre mennene, begge var helt fokusert på barna sine. Ja, Vanja, sa jeg lavt. Det mangt slag, som oldefaren din pleide å si. Hun så opp på meg. Til nå hadde hun ikke bitt på en eneste av de tingene barna skulle gjøre. Selv ikke riste på en maracas, ville hun. Da begynner vi, sa den vakre kvinnen og trykket på CD-spilleren. En folkemusikkaktig melodi strømmet ut i rommet, og jeg begynte å gå etter de andre med hvert steg i takt til musikken. Vanja holdt jeg med en hånd under hver arm, slik at hun hang og dinglet inn til brystet mitt. Så var det å stampe med foten og svinge henne rundt før turen tilbake begynte. Mange hadde mye moro med dette. Det lød latter og til og med noen vin. Da det var ferdig, skulle vi danse alene med barna. Jeg vagget rundt med Vanja på armen, mens jeg tenkte at det var et slik helvete måtte være. Mykt og snilt og fylt av fremmede mødre med babyer. Da det var over, begynte en seanse med et stort, blått seil, som først skulle være havet, hvor vi sang en sang om bølger, og alle sammen gynget seilet, slik at bølger løp over det, og så noen barna skulle krype unna, til vi hevet det brått opp, også det syngende. Da hun til sist takket for i dag, skyndte jeg meg ut, fikk på Vanja klærne uten å møte noens blikk. Jeg stirret ned i bakken, men stemmene, gladere nå enn før de gikk inn, summet rundt meg. Satte Vanja opp i vognen, spente henne fast, og trillet henne så fort ut som jeg kunne, uten at det virket påfallende. Ute på gaten hadde jeg lyst til å rope alt jeg kunne og til å knuse noe. Men jeg fikk nøye meg med å legge så mange meter bak dette kjenselens sted så fort som mulig. Thank you.
Yes, Karl Ove, how many lives can a man live?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Did you enjoy it? In fact, it's healthy, the baby gymnastics, no?
If I enjoyed the baby gymnastics?
Yeah. Did you went back?
I can't say enjoyment was my first thought, no.
Mm-hmm. You do it sometimes like hoofd, schouders. We also do it.
Yeah.
And then you have the punt of the nose.
Yeah.
Were there situations during working, writing, that you thought like this, for instance, that you think, I have to take notes for future use. I have to take notes now, and write it down later, or
no, it's all based on what's in my head. So if I remember something, if something comes up, then I write it down. If I don't remember it, it's not important enough. So I didn't plan to write this scene. It just, came in with the flow. And it's a difficult situation because you want to do it good for your kid, Mm-hmm. But there is kind of a place where you have to say no, And this was the place for me. But this has been very controversial in Sweden, exactly this scene, because I'm making fun of this. And this discussion is about equality between man and woman, And in this place, I said that there's a difference between man and woman, in a way, or in the idea of man and woman. So there was a big reaction, because no, there's no difference. Man should do exactly like woman, and we're the same. It's just a kind of a cultural thing we are learning, And for me, it's not. But I'm not saying this is the truth for everybody. It's the truth for me.
But you also asked the question, what in all of your books, what is male identity?
Yeah. This is, for me, it's also a personal question. It's personal and it's something more, but a personal thing first. When I was 12, 13, all of a sudden, all around me started to call me feminine. And when
you're feminine.
Yeah. And when you are in puberty, this is the worst thing for a boy, to be called feminine. And they was yelling it at me, And that was a catastrophe for me, Why? Obviously because I liked clothes. All the other boys ordered blue school college. I ordered red. Big mistake. I enjoyed talking to the girls. Big mistake. And I was kind of feminine. I was also very sensitive, reading a lot.
Crying a lot.
Crying a lot, yeah, I was crying a lot as well. And I was a coward. All those things, no good for a boy. And it was kind of tough environment, not very tough, but kind of tough, so it was no good. And then we moved, very luckily, and I tried to be as masculine as I could at a new school. And in my being 16, 17, I kind of tried to pose in a masculine way, you know, before the mirror. And I started to doubt my sexual...
That's also kind of gymnastic, no?
Yeah.
Huh. How did you do it? Like hoofd?
No, but just, you know, looking at yourself, try to look as tough or hard as you could, you know. And then I also was very afraid maybe I'm, you know, my sexual orientation isn't wrong, maybe there is something wrong with me. It was kind of... And when I was in my teenager, now it's like a joke, but then it's a serious business, you know. Maybe I'm wrong. That's the thing. And so I've always been very, what's the word? Always been very, I note things about, you know, masculinity, femininity, what it is to be a man. And then when I got kids, become a father. And I have ideas of what a father is from my father or from the generation before, and ideas what it is to be a man. And those ideas are the problems, you know. You have to find your own way through here. But all you got in the beginning is this concept of being a man, this concept of being a father. And in Sweden and Norway, you are expected to be like a mother, which is the opposite concept. And it's very difficult to orientate yourself in this area. And I didn't want to write an essay about it. I just wanted to tell how this feels and be as honest as possible. But when my mother read this part, which I read now, she was laughing very much, and she said, I recognize it. I was so humiliated doing these things when you were a kid. And she's a woman, so it's really not about that. It's about doing too much for the kids, I think. Giving up too much to please them.
Adapting too much.
I'm sorry?
Adapting too much to the others.
Yeah, and we do that, our generation. A lot more than the generation before, I think. And that's a good thing, because I think we come closer to the kids in a way. But it's also a bad thing, because that distance, which also is important when you raise kids, kind of disappears. And all those things has to do with identity. And both the baby rhythmic and Breivik and Hitler and me and Linda getting high and low, that's identity questions. Who is she really? There or there, you know? So it's all connected in this search of identity and national identity. I think in the 70s, a lot of women writers in Scandinavia, feminists, start to write about their private life, their private self, intimacy, you know, was hugely criticized for that. You should be interested in politics, not yourself. That was, I think, because the identity of who a woman are was in kind of a crisis, or was changing, you know. And no male identity is in change and maybe in a crisis. National identity is a crisis. Things are changing. And I think it's very difficult to stand there and just, you know, analyze it, because we are a part of it. So my strategy is I wrote just everything I'm thinking, feeling. I hope there is something in there that is relevant.
You say national identity is a problem too. You were writing also about nationalism and the dangers of nationalism. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because we have this danger here too in Belgium.
This is a very complicated topic, I think, nationalism or national identity. I have to go back, because I'm from Norway. What happened in Liefde was a national crisis and affected every one of us. I was living in Sweden. I don't feel particularly Norwegian, you know. When that happened, I felt it happened at home. It happened among us. So I felt like a we, you know, very, very strongly. And I was crying a lot, and everybody was crying. And that feeling is a national feeling. It's we, and we belong here, and we are together in this, you know. That's a good feeling. I think in the 1930s, so many people joining the Nazi movement because it was a good feeling. It was a we, a good we. It wasn't but it's the same feelings, and those feelings are very, very strong. And then you have, like Breivik, an idea of a pure Norway in the 50s, like it was in the 50s. Simple society, has never been a pure society. Things have never been simple. It's just fiction, But a lot of people think that. And if in times of crisis, you want that solution, 30s, big crisis in Europe, simple solution. And now there is a pressure on the national identity because of immigrations, because of many different cultures. Things are getting complicated. We have to be open about this. We have to admit what we feel. If we feel, I want it to be pure, I want it to be one country, one nation, this have to be admitted, So you can, because I think those feelings are strong. And I don't feel it's right to, just say, I don't want to listen to this, you are fascist, you racist, get out of here. Because these feelings exist, And this is very complicated, and I write it in a form of novel. I'm not debating anything, But I'm very interested in it. And I think this is the same in every European country. And the solution is different. Even in Scandinavia it's different. In Sweden it's like, we don't talk about this. We accept immigrants, we don't talk about this. We don't say we are Swedish, we are kind of multicultural, That's their solution. In Denmark, it's the opposite. Everybody could say what they mean, and it's kind of a more ugly debate going on, And I find this very difficult, because we have to be decent, We can't say what we like, really. Anybody can't say what I like, because the climate will get ugly. We have to be decent. Debate has to be decent. But on the other side, you have to trust people. I mean, you can't say that people are... you are not allowed to say what you mean. I mean, you have to. Everybody has to do that. And I think coming an economic crisis in Europe now, I mean, things are happening in Hungary, and there's a nationalist movement there, very strong, and this is very difficult things, I think.
But it isn't easy to say everything, what you think or what you mean or what you see, because you yourself had problems with your books too, with the family of your father, with your ex-wife. Did you learn something from that?
If I learned something from that?
Did you learn something from that, yeah?
Yes. This is, if you talk in general terms about what literature are in a society, you could say, this is important, we need someone to go in these areas and talk about this. But on a personal level, for me, it's impossible to say that. I wrote about my father and my grandmother, and my father's family wanted to stop that, they wanted to sue me, and I was very, very angry, and I said, you can't do that to us, and I was hurting them. I obviously was. But I'm a writer, and I wanted to publish it, what can I do? How can we make a solution here? It's impossible to make a solution. So what I said to myself was to turn it around and say, who can stop me from telling the story of my father? But that's not good enough, really. So I had to do it, and I did it, and I hurt them. I didn't hurt them, like it was dangerous, but I hurt them very much. Colm Toybin, the writer, I just read a quote from him where he was talking to literary students, and he said, if you're not prepared that your relatives would get very angry at you, if you're not prepared to betray your friends, then you can just go home. There is kind of a job you have to do. But you can't say that in general. You can say that in general. Personally, it's like hell. And the worst thing is I can't excuse myself because I do it deliberately, There's no way out of this for me. And I can't defend myself because they have no place to defend it, And it's, yeah, I only hope that this is going to pass, pass. And, but I've done it. I've hurt them. I want to be good. Couldn't write about myself being good. Was impossible. So I have to choose being a good person or
a writer.
Or a writer, yes. And all my life has been based on that I want to please people and I want to be liked. And my biggest fear in this world is someone getting angry at me, you know? So if Linda, for instance, yells at me, I'm afraid. I'm like a little boy. And I go deliberately in this situation with all this anger and all this frustration and all this conflict. It was a total nightmare for me. And at the same time, I have to write the other books, you know? I wrote 4 books that year when this book was published. So it was... what I discovered is that I have an autistic gene, you know? I could, knowing all this is going on, I could just turn away and continue writing. And I think this like this, I'm a very empathetic person when I see someone, when I'm in the room with someone. When I go by myself, no empathy. And I like people, I love people when I'm with them. By myself, I don't care. And it's true, and it's a painful truth, but it's true, and it has to do with writing as well. And I think everybody who writes, everybody who likes music, creates music, plays music, everybody's paint, something is wrong, something has broken in them. I believe that, because if you're happy, you don't need to do these things.
You wrote about the manic depressive periods of Linda, your wife. Was it difficult for her to read, because she could read your book before it was published?
Yeah.
Was it difficult for her to read all those passages where she's sometimes very patient, in fact?
It was not problematic to read about her disease or whatever you can call it, because that's very important to be honest and to admit that it's a fact of life, you know. But she was very, very concerned about what I was writing about our relationship. But she said, publish it, I don't want to change a thing, but we have to talk. And we did. And I think she once said in an interview that I would like that our relationship, or what it tells me, I would like myself to be, you know, acting with dignity. But I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I didn't. And she was referring to one moment where she hit me. It's the only time in my life I've been hit.
It's in the book, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then I wanted to leave her. And it was so horrible. And writing about that was very difficult, because you don't want to give away. I mean, nobody wants to be a person who hit another person, you know. And it looked like maybe like I'm making a case there against my wife, but I didn't. I just want to capture the because there was a reason for her hitting me. There was a reason because this was half a year after we decided to have 3 kids, and we had planned we are going to have kids now, just in 3 months, you know. And then I was in Norway dealing with my ex-wife, you know, selling the house and so on, and coming back. And I said, maybe we should wait having the kids. And this was kind of, she was just so out of herself. She just, you know, she was so afraid to lose everything, because this was hope for her kids, you know, stability and so on. And that's also in the book. You could see the whole picture of her in the book. So that's... If it's only had been that bad parts, it would been very terrible for her. But it's also the other things. So, but she said goodbye romance, no more romance in our life, because it's such an anti-romantic book. It's about quarreling, it's about frustration, despair, being a little person wanting to hurt the other, and this going on with 3 kids, looking terrible. It affected them, of course. And at one moment, we just have to say, we have to stop this. And she wrote, after she had read this book, she wrote me a letter 3 days after. We were talking night and day, and then she wrote me a letter, and she said, I have to let you free. I have to set you free. I realize that now. I'm trying to keep you. I have to set you free. And she did. So I'm sitting here. I mean, she's not calling me, you have to be back home.
She's a writer too. Does she write about you?
Yes, but not in my name. I can recognize it, but no one else would know. No, and a lot of people know it's me, but it's fiction. And it's fantastic. And she's exactly opposite of me. She's very, very concentrated. An extreme, kind of explosive prose. And she's very vulnerable. And she's writing about families and giving birth, death. Yes, it's very good.
You say she's very vulnerable, but you have very vulnerable passages too in your books. For example, when you describe your own alcoholism or your own need for drinks.
Yeah.
What did you learn yourself while you were drinking about yourself? Raymond Carver said once he was really very alcoholic, that he learned a lot about himself while he was drinking. Did you learn something too?
I drink to reduce the distance. I drink to be warm, friendly, and I drink to disappear.
To disappear?
Yeah, if you don't think about anything in the end when you're drinking, you know, you're just there and now, everything is good. And there's so little of that feelings in my normal life that drinking for me is very good, but I just keep on drinking. And then I lose completely control and have blackouts. I can't remember where I've been. I mean, I've been waking up in jail, you know, because I've been drinking too much, not doing. I did something wrong, I have to admit. But
what did you do wrong?
You know, I told you the story about my brother taking the one I was in love with. At the end of that year, I took a glass of wine and threw it in his face. So we got the glasses here and it was cut. And then I just ran away and coming to a kind of a hospital. And I was so drunk I didn't know anything. So I broke into the hospital and the police found me there and took me to jail. And then there was a sergeant or whatever he was the day after, you know, asking questions. And he said there's been a car theft and a stolen car just by there. Was that me? I didn't know. And do you have any witnesses?
Remember.
Do you have any witnesses? Yeah, my brother. And he came down and he had a bandage. and the policeman asked, who did that? That was him, you know. Mm-hmm. And this was, I was 20 years old, no control whatsoever, you know. And all of sudden aggression, very unusual for me, but it could happen, you know. It's dangerous.
You were also writing about the alcoholism of Linda's mother, who is taking care of your children at a certain moment.
Yeah.
And then you do something very, it's not strange, maybe it's normal, I don't know. To control her, you put something on the bottle to see if she is drinking from the bottle. So you're controlling her very much, in fact. This control of others, you only did it in her case, in this alcohol case, or you do it sometimes in other cases too?
No, I haven't done it in other cases. And this is nothing I'm proud of. It's, but she was taking care of our kid, and she was alone. And I just realized that all our alcohol was despairing. So I just want to find out who was that. Was it Linda? I don't think so. Couldn't be. And then I tried to find out if it was her. And I wrote it. And this book was published. And she was so hurt by that. It was incredible. And she said to me, you have a character in your book with my name. That's okay, but she has nothing to do with me. And I was working a lot. We have 3 kids. We needed help. So, can you come and help us? Yeah, she can come. And she was there all the time, and she was very angry. And it was so much tension in the house, you know. At the same time, she loves me, she likes me, but she felt totally betrayed, you know. And it was so difficult. But she's very generous, larger-than-life person. She wants most of all to be with our kids, you know. So she accepted it in a way, but I've hurted her deeply. And then the book was published in Sweden, and then her friends could read it, and she have to relive it. I think she's fine with it now. She's at our house at this moment. But no, it's difficult. I don't know other things to say. I did it, I wrote it. Wish I hadn't, but I did. And it's true, and it's not dangerous for me, but of course it is for her.
Do you want to be a saint?
He's a man who is fond of double life, double moral. I think it's hypocrisy to I mean, you could have a wife and then an affair. If nobody knows, it's okay, you know? And I want to be honest in my life. And if I do a mistake like that, I mean, it's like I feel so guilty, and you know, it's impossible for me.
That's why I asked, maybe being honest is not human.
It's not human? Mm-hmm. Good point. Because if you are, I think it's impossible to be 100% honest. If you are, you're taking a step outside of humanity. And Geir, my friend, he said, you can't really write Mein Kampf. Adolf Hitler could, you couldn't. And that has to do with that, I think. Because you can go to a certain place and it hurts in your body when you do that. There are borders, if you cross them, it hurts so much you can't really. So I pushed those borders. But I didn't go very far, I don't think so.
He also said, or he says in the book, that you can't make a difference between innocence and desire.
No.
You want to have both.
Yeah.
And it is incompatible. You can't have both in life.
No.
Do you really want them together?
This is what I'm talking about, the ideas you have of things, you know. And this is the Madonna complex, you can call it.
You have a Madonna complex?
I think I have, yes.
Mm-hmm. That's a confession.
Yeah. And this is my first book. Was about a teacher, 26 years old, falling in love with a girl, 13 years old. They're having an affair and a sexual relationship, and he's just running away. I wrote that. Why did I write that? What's to be 13? It's pure innocence, you know. And the feeling of a grown-up going in there is kind of an abnormality or something, you know. But there is something there that I'm thinking of, I think. I think when I was 18, I worked as a teacher, and my students were 13, 14, 15. When I left there, I kind of stopped thinking about it, what had happened there. And then I was writing this novel 10 years after, about a man, he's run away from something. I don't know what that is, but it's kind of revealing his life. And we was going to publish it, but something was missing. And then I just placed him up north, where I have been, in the classroom. And it all came back, the feelings, you know, the feelings for the 13-year-old girls, which is the ultimate taboo, you know. And I pretended this is fiction, I'm just writing it, you know. And I was kind of, this evoked things that I was interested in, and I had emotions too, and I think this is something I could write about, and it's really kind of burning, you know. And then I should write about this in the fourth book in the series, because I was 18. And then I have to try to tell it exactly like it was, and that was very difficult, of course, because you are not supposed to go in that direction. But of course nothing happened or nothing then, but it was kind of a lot of things going on that is uncomfortable for me, and has to do with purity, innocence, childhood. And at that time I was very close to my own childhood. I was 18, you know, and I remembered when I was 13 and in love, you know, it's all that kind of things. And for a writer, you have to go to those places, even if it's big personal costs, I think. And it's, you know, for one, it's a lot of stories like that going on. There was one in England now, a teacher running away with that. And there comes a lot of things. This is about, you know, power, it's about sexuality, it's about, you know, it's a lot of things. But also, it's a word I can't find at the moment. Not childness, but something like being a child, you know, yourself. And I read at that moment a book by Anne McEwen called A Child in Time, a man in an enormous regression, being in Parliament and then climbing in the trees. And there was something in there for me. I was so nostalgic for my past and my childhood. I wanted that rush into childhood, but I didn't want it dangerously. So there's a kind of sexual touch to it. Very complicated, very ugly. But nobody said anything about this in Norway. They just built a monument over it, gave it prizes, because it's beautifully written, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of... Now, this topic wasn't touched. I thought it's going to be a scandal or something, but it wasn't.
Did you need a lot of distance in time also sometimes writing these books? Because sometimes you remember things of your childhood. That's totally different than remembering the day before or last week. How did you work with the time distances or time differences? Going back in time?
Yeah, you have those two first books. They are kind of a lot of time levels. But the third book is only childhood, and the fourth book is only 17, 18. And I, for many years, every time before I go to sleep, I imagine the first place, there where I was raised, there a place where I lived until I was 13. Going through the woods there, up on the mountain there, down to the house there. I did this for years. I have a kind of extremely good visual memory of my childhood places. So what I did when I wrote that novel, I just placed myself in this context and started to walk, you know. Go down there, okay, it's a boat, what's going on there? And things kept coming back to me. There is a lot of memories you have that you are not aware of. If you, for instance, play football when you are 15, a lot, you know.
You played football when you were 15?
Yeah, or basketball or whatever. And if you quit and then started to play football when you are 40, it will come back to you in a rush, all the smells, all the feelings, all the people, you know. So you have kind of a bodily memory. And I think we have all our ages in us still. I mean, the feelings being 7 is still in us. And the thoughts you have is still there somewhere. And if you open up for it, like you do when you write a novel, it keeps coming up to you, I think. And that's basically the way I write all the time. Just go in, visualize, and go in there. And then things happen, and I just go after them. But it's a very painful book as well. I said to my mother, don't read book number 3. And she hasn't.
She hasn't?
No.
After 6 books, then I can imagine you have then the landscape of all the identities you once had, and you can see the change and changes in your identity, because an identity changes always.
Yeah.
Self-images always change too.
Yeah.
Do you have a landscape now of your own life, your own identity between till the end or till 2011?
Kind of, yes. But the interesting thing for me is through all that period, all those years, I have the same feeling of being me, you know? That's constant. It's the same. Maybe that little, I think that's the identity. All the other things keep changing, you know? And the interesting thing too is that when I was 10, my father was like this. Now I'm 40, he's totally different, and that changes me as well, you know. And just yesterday I was talking to a woman after a reading, and she was telling me, this happened a few weeks ago, I don't want to go in detail because I don't want to give her away, but she knew something from her past she hadn't known, and it changes everything, and she had to really, it changes everything in her upbringing, and these things can happen, you know. You think it's like this, and then someone has been hiding something from you, and they reveal it, and it's like that. I have an example, a little example, not a big example, but I thought always my father's father was a very hard and tough and didn't really, you know, because that was my father's way of describing him, and he was maybe right. But then, and I thought they despised my mother, I thought, you know, because my father always said they didn't like your mother, they didn't like her. And then me and my mother went and visited them. And he was kind of, you could see him, you know, so warm and so grateful, and he, you know, and that changes my whole conception of our family. Okay, my father has been lying, or what is this, you know? But a kind of things like that changes everything. But the story I told about the woman was a big thing, but you know, it's the same. So the interesting thing is that history is changing all the time. We think history is kind of stable, but it isn't. Personal history is changing. The bigger history is changing. So that's interesting.
The end of your Mein Kampf, so after 6 books, what the end sentence is something like, "I'm not a writer anymore."
I'm so happy that I'm no longer an author. That was the only thing in the book I know from the start. This is the end of the book, that sentence. And why? Yeah, because this is a book about life and literature. And my whole life I've been turning away from life, looking into literature. And I wanted the book to end the opposite way, turning away from literature into life. No more literature, only life. And it was like that when I ended it. Now it's different, but for a few months there it was like that.
Describe the feeling of having a life.
I thought I had written a long book about it.
Yeah, no. I mean, like
a real life without literature.
And without literature, yeah, not being an author anymore.
That's a happy life, and a life without so much reflection, and a life where we enjoy what's around you. You know, I mean, it's such a sin as I open this to say not enjoying life, and I have, you know, kids and everything, and it's selfish not to enjoy life. So that's what it's about. No reflection, only enjoyment. That's a good life.
But it was only there for a few months, the feeling?
Yeah, not even a few months, a few weeks, I think.
So what are you now then?
What I'm doing?
Yeah, you're
where I am.
An author again, writing again.
I'm publishing other authors. I have a publishing house, and I'm going to write a film manuscript. And I'm going to write a novel. I have to do that.
Fiction again.
Fiction, yeah. I think I have to do it about, you know, what we were talking about. National identity and biology. I'm very interested in DNA and genes and manipulation and those things. So I think it will be very fictitious and very contemporary at the same time. I think the subjects are very contemporary. And I love, you know, fairy tales. Like the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales, or now we have Asbjørnsen and Moe, and I want to do something in there, in that world, in the collection of fairy tales, but also the fairy tales itself. I want to write, you know, something completely fantastic and out of this world.
Enjoy life and keep writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Misschien nog 3 praktische dingen. Ik moest 3 woorden onthouden. Bal, drank en vestiaire. Balzaal krijgen jullie allemaal een drankje zo dadelijk. Niet te veel, maar geniet er toch van. Wat was het? Bal, drank, dat heb ik nu al gezegd. Er wordt ook gesigneerd. Drank is ook voor de geest. Er wordt ook gesigneerd. Karl Ove gaat boeken signeren, dus jullie zijn welkom. Krijg je de inkt uit zijn pen. En het derde, heel praktische, is de vestiaire sluit op tijd. Dus als jullie naar de drank en naar de pennenvruchten willen, moeten jullie eerst jullie jas gaan halen. Kom veilig thuis. Jullie waren een heel aangenaam publiek. Geef ook een applaus voor uzelf, want jullie zijn het allemaal waard in deze grote wijavond. Dank je wel.